badass businesses. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Couldn't do it last week, had the kiddo in town, but we had a great time. I hope you guys were doing well. Today, I'm talking to supervisors, but hopefully I've got a few grad students on here, and hopefully I've got a few LPC and LMFT associates. LMFT associates, I know we leave you out a lot, but there's still stuff you can gain from this when we talk about LPC associates and LPC supervision. So today in the fall, every year, it's all about supervising, supervisees, and supervisors in business. Guys, if you're gonna hire your supervisees, you've got to expect to do things a little differently. Now, as I get started, I'd love to see somebody over here giving me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I know a couple of weeks ago we had some difficulty with technology. Go figure. But let me tell you kind of what's on the horizon here. If you are a graduate student, please don't forget tonight is our Zoom meeting transitioning from grad student to LPC associate tonight with Dr. Summer Allen of the LPC Associates of Texas. We are both going to present and teach you what you need to know as you transition from graduate student to LPC associate. We only have 2 more of these to go. We're going to do it tonight, then again October 12th, and then again November 10th. If you don't have the link to the Zoom meeting you want to attend, you can pop it in the thread and I will give you the email. It's kwtrainingit@gmail.com. You need to email kwtrainingit@gmail.com and we will send you the link so that you can attend one of the last 2 remaining meetings for this semester. If you're in a class that night, ask your professor if you can take about an hour to watch this presentation. It's at 7 o'clock. We keep it to 1 hour. Summer and I both got things to do, like, binge watching Netflix. That's me personally. But we will spend an hour and answer your questions about how to find a supervisor, what makes a good supervisor, what makes, how do you apply for the NCE? Things are changing on the horizon with the laws. We all know this. We have some brand new proposed rules in the Texas Register right now that pertain to you, LPC associates and LPC supervisors. We have 30 days to comment. Then those babies go into effect sometime probably early 2022. So we got to get prepared. Also, I want to let you know that I'm talking about supervision, supervisees, all the things in a couple of different places this semester. I know I still think like an educator. Maybe I shouldn't do that. This fall, this year, the rest of 2021, I'm on 2 podcasts with, first one with ZennyMe. ZennyMe, they are your private practice experts. I am going to appear on a podcast with Kelly Higdon from ZennyMe, and I'm going to appear with Crystal Acosta on her Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast. So look for those. I will announce those release dates soon. So again, I see I've got 6 folks watching. If you guys could give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if our technology is working. Here from Lampasas, Texas. Love this place, but the Wi-Fi can suck sometimes. Also, Dr. Leanne Salmonson and I will offer a 6-hour supervisor kind of a refresher course at the TCA PGC in Galveston, Texas, November 3rd. It's a pre-conference workshop, so if you're a supervisor and you're ready to attend that, registration is open now. And then I'm going to present October 29th with the University of Texas at Austin School of Social Work, again on my favorite topic, supervision. And finally, I'm going to present on my own at the TCA PGC November 4th. And it's all about the upcoming new laws, private practice, LPC associates, and how you're going to supervise them, supervisors. So please attend that. Finally, last but not least, don't forget October 18th, our mentor of the month is Jessica Eisman, and she's going to be teaching you how to add multiple streams of income to your private practice to exceed your financial goals. This is October the 18th at 8 in the morning. Tickets are only $25. Come on, 25 bucks, right? This is good stuff, amazing stuff. Amanda Esquivel gave us a great foundation for our private practice at her Mentor of the Month this past Monday. It was amazing, 1 hour, great information. And if you look in the Badass Business thread, you'll see she's got the recording from you. For you, not from you, for you. I'm leaving it up to each presenter whether or not they want to record, but if they decide to, I give them the recording. So this next one, you can hear Jessica talk about multiple streams of income. Now, what is that? That could be you want to sell a book. It could be that you want to add supervision to your practice. Whatever it is, it means you're not tied to just client as your income, right? What if you have a no-show? What if somebody gets sick? What if you get sick? Remember, you're too important to lose to things like burning out. Having clients as your sole source of income can really lead to just that. So please consider attending Monday, October the 18th. Jessica Eisman talking about multiple streams of income for your practice. It's not just for those guys on TV that are like, but wait, there's more. It's for people who want a sustainable business to last throughout their lifetime. So that's it for the commercials. Let's talk about why supervisors who hire supervisees need 2 contracts. All right, so let's review. If you're a supervisor and you have supervisees, you have a supervision contract. Now, this is a clinical contract. It's between you and your supervisee that sets the basis, the foundation for the relationship. This is where you let them know what kind of a supervisor you are, what you expect from them, how often you are going to evaluate them. Little things, right? Like what your fee is, how often you expect to meet with them, how many of the sessions will be in group, how many will be in individual, how to contact you, the nature of supervision. Obviously, you're going to help them attain all of their experience requirements for licensure. So yes, that's the clinical contract. A lot of folks that I teach in my 40-hour supervisor course want to include things in there that are suited for their business, and they don't know the difference, and that's okay. You don't know what you don't know, but there are things that belong in the clinical contract that don't belong in the administrative contract or the employment contract, whatever you'd like to call that, and vice versa. So a good rule of thumb is if it's going to negatively impact the relationship, it belongs in the administrative contract, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples in a second, okay? So I kind of told you what's in the clinical contract. Let's talk about what could be in the administrative contract. Administrative contract might have things like site policies, like when you walk into the site, here's where you get the key, here's how you lock up, here's what we expect you to do with the cash, put it in this drawer, talk to this person. Lots of administrative things, procedural things that are specific to your site. Big question I get is, as a supervisor, do I need to sign my supervisee's notes? Heck no. Nobody asks for that. There's no rule that says you have to sign anybody's notes. Thank the Lord, right? So this is easy if you're a supervisor and your supervisee is off here somewhere. I mean, you know you're not signing off on progress notes. So that's something that belongs in an administrative contract. If that is your site policy, then absolutely put it in your contract so your supervisee that you're hiring knows, hey, I've got to sign every single one of your notes. And that may be something on the horizon with some insurance companies. I know with some EMR, they require another signature. I'm not real familiar with that, but that is definitely a procedural thing, not an LPC, LMFT, BHEC thing, right? So belongs here. Another thing that belongs in the administrative contract is the fee structure. A lot of times new supervisors, they want to have a clinical contract where they're getting into the 50-30, or I'm sorry, 80-20, whatever the percentages, and here's what you're paying for. If the AC bill goes up, your split goes down, all that stuff. Well, that pisses people off the first time they read it, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute, you're going to nickel and dime me to death? See this face I'm making? Yeah, that negatively impacts the relationship before it's even gotten started. I read the threads in the other groups with the LPC associates and LMFT associates. I don't like being nickel and dimed, right? When I worked in an office place, I won't name names, Regis, they nickel and dimed me all the time. Like they were going to make me pay if I used too many cups of coffee. I mean, I was just like, right? When I make this face, that's not good for the person I'm making the face at, right? So, clinical contract, we want to make sure these are issues that can be remediated and grown through, right? We don't fire our supervisees. We remediate, we evaluate. Then, if we need to, we terminate. Unless, of course, they're having sex with a client. That is termination. In most cases, clinical contract is about growth, helping your supervisee get from level 1 to level 2 to finally your colleague. And that growth is expected, right? In an administrative contract, you're going to have something called a progressive discipline plan. And this is where I'm sure you've heard these terms. You get a write-up, you get you get a verbal warning, then a write-up, then you're fired, right? Texas is an at-will state. You can fire anybody anytime for anything. In an administrative contract with, if I go work for Walmart, they're going to explain the progressive discipline plan. There's no remediation there. It's just, oh, hey, you did it again? Oh, well, I gave you a verbal. Here's your written write-up. You do it again, you're fired, right? Over here in my clinical contract, it's, okay, we need to make sure we teach this. Okay, I've taught this. You're still not getting it. Looks like you need a remediation plan. Oh, okay, you're still struggling here. Let me help you, right? This is a growth model in your clinical contract, not the administrative contract. Now, are there some exceptions? Of course, right? I wrote some down, right? If you don't finish your notes, is that a clinical issue or an administrative issue? Well, obviously, if you're not documenting your sessions, that's clinical because you're breaking one of the rules for your license, right? But since a site supervisor gets direct eyes on that, while a clinical supervisor does not, there's no way a clinical supervisor would even know that's happening, right? Another thing, if you're late, if your supervisee is constantly late for their client sessions, if you're a clinical supervisor off-site, you'd never know that. On-site supervisor, you're tracking every time a client reports, hey, my counselor was late again, right? And you're documenting that. You're doing the written warnings, verbal warnings, etc. Now, and again, being late to client sessions, of course you need to process that in clinical supervision, right? That is something that may, parallel process. We've got some things going on here and here that maybe need to be processed further. But if it is not something that an off-site supervisor would see every single day, here's the solution: communication, right? So if you are hiring your supervisee and you have these roles, right? You've got to run the business. You've got to pay the bills. You've got to make sure that they're following the rules. You've got to make sure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You sit down, you consult with somebody, and you say, you know what? Half of this stuff is administrative. It's nice, if you're able to hire a second person, right? I know several of my colleagues have done this. My friend Amanda Esquivel hired her husband, just someone who can do the administrative work so that that clinical relationship stays manageable. If you're an off-site supervisor and you don't hire your supervisee, you can do this as well, with a release of information from your supervisee to speak to the site supervisor, but then you have to be aware of triangulation, right? When the triangulation is not something that we try to cure. It is what it is, right? You've got your supervisee, you've got the site administrator or site supervisor. You have to, over here as an off-site supervisor, make sure you are absolutely transparent with your supervisee about the conversations with the site supervisor, right? No secrets. If it's a problem and you want to know about it, right? If it's a problem, so you want that site supervisor to be able to communicate with you, but if you are in session with your supervisee, you don't want to keep that a secret. So as an off-site supervisor, that's huge. It's also something for a different Thursday 30. Today, what we're talking about are these dual roles. When you're a supervisor and you're hiring your supervisee and you're trying to wear the hat of the clinical supervisor, and then you take that hat off and you put on the hat of the administrative supervisor, you need to have two sets of rules, right? And I've done it before. It sucked. I didn't like it. One of the things I would do is I would tell my supervisees, okay, for the first 10 minutes, it's administrative. Tell me if you need a new key. Tell me if you couldn't get in the building last night. Tell me if we need new throw pillows in office number 5. And if they tried to talk about clients, I would be like, no. First 10 minutes, we're just administrative. And then for the rest of the hour, we could be clinical, right? Terrible solution, but at least it helped my supervisees understand that there was a difference, right? And it works as long as it works, but when there's a problem, now we have to think, oh, wait a second, is this a clinical issue I need to remediate? Or is this an administrative issue that I need to give them a write-up? Well, when you give them a write-up with your supervisor hat on, guess what? That impacts the relationship. So the things that can be in an administrative contract, again, we talked about being on time, dress code, fee structure, the 50-50, 60-40, 80-20 split, how you want them to do their notes, how you want them to do their treatment plans, what happens, the consequences if they're late, the consequences if their notes are missing or treatment plans are missing, things like that. But let's talk about the clinical contract for just a second, because as a supervisor, you can have policies in your clinical contract that relate to things that aren't necessarily clinical. For instance, if you don't want your supervisee to have a wide open social media platform, you can do that, right? That's what happens in the interview. You can look your supervisee or potential supervisee dead in the eye, and you can say, hey, when you're with me, you need to shut down your social media so only friends and family can see that. And we'll have a supervision where we sit down together and I'll show you how to adjust the privacy settings on your Twitter and your Instagram and your TikTok and your Facebook and your whatever, so that people out there in the world can't just search and find you. That's my policy. Take it or leave it. Right? Because you're in that potential supervisee stage. There's still time for everybody to say, nah, we're not a good fit. I don't like that policy. So your clinical contract supervisors can still specify best practices for your supervision practice, even if you are not hiring your supervisee, right? Even if your supervisee is going off all over town to do their work, your clinical contract can still tell them, hey, this is what it's going to be like to supervise with me. Don't like it? Go find somebody else. Go to Kate Walker Training and click our supervisor directory, and we have over 100 supervisors you can interview. And thanks to the limits being gone on supervision and technology, you can have any supervisor in the state if you don't like their policies, right? You just say, hey, it's not you, it's me. Good to know you. Bye-bye, gonna go find another supervisor. On the job, however, right? On the job as an administrative supervisor, as a clinical supervisor who owns a business and trying to do all the juggling and all the things, Your documentation has to be pristine, right? You have to be able to tell the difference between when you should remediate and when you should give them a verbal warning and fire them. Ideally, you should have another person doing that administrative work. Now, if you are in if you're in Kate Walker Training Supervisor Refresher course, or you're a recent graduate of my 40-hour supervisor training, you have access to a policy and procedures manual template that you can modify. I think I even put it in this group. So it's possibly in this group. I'll check the files later and see if it's there. If you are a supervisor, please take a look at a policy and procedures manual and then compare it to your supervision contract and just see how different they are. And remember, you have to manage those dual roles if you can't avoid them. If you are literally the one who hires, runs the business, and then for 1 or 2 hours a week takes off that administrative hat and tries to do clinical work, you know, if you piss somebody off or if they piss you off, it's going to be really hard to stay in that teachable state that a clinical supervisor has to stay in order to grow this level 1, level 2 supervisee into your colleague. Remember, we need more providers, not fewer, right? We're not here trying to fire everybody who's not a little mini-me. We need to make sure our policies and procedures are clear, and our policies and procedures for our clinical work are clear. And this is the part we hate, we have to make sure that our or else is clear, right? Progressive discipline plan for your policy and procedures, your employment contract, a remediation plan for your clinical work, right? One is a countdown to getting fired. The clinical one, is a count up to growth, all right? Different purposes, different roles, right? And as a supervisor, I know you have so many. That's why we have Texas Supervisor Training. If you're not in there and you're a supervisor, get your butt over there. Texas Supervisor Training. If you're not in our consultation groups, get your butt over to Kate Walker Training. Buy a ticket for our next consultation group in November. The amazing attorney Kenda Dalrymple is going to talk to us about laws and procedures. Folks, laws are changing for supervisors and supervisees. It's a big year. I would say the last 3 years, I've seen more changes than I've seen in the last 15 years in this profession. So please stay in contact, get involved, pay your $25, buy the ticket, go to the meeting, participate, understand, talk to people who are smarter than you. That's what I do, right? We try to surround ourselves with people who are smarter than we are. Next week in our Thursday 30, we're going to talk about 1099s and W-2s. It's everybody's favorite topic in business and supervision. So thank you. What time we got? Oh gosh, I got to go. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. This is Dr. Kate Walker with your Thursday 30. How to tell the difference between an administrative contract, a clinical contract, and if you're hiring your supervisees, why you need both. Have a great day.